Okay, in 1 hour, it will have been exactly 1 week since the Rotifers and TW1800 solution arrived. So let's see how they're doing after 1 week. They were doing really good at 3 days, and they have a smaller population as of day 5. So here we are on day 7, and we're just going to pray for the best here. So I'm going to turn off the bubbler, and let's see how they're doing. Now we're going to start with the easier to see tank here, which is the newer colony that might have brine shrimp in it by accident. Okay, and they're alive. Like, you can see stuff swimming in there. That's good. They're not dense at all, but there are living things in there. Now let's zoom in and admire their beauty. Okay, here we go. And they are swimming towards the light. Aw, how cute. It's interesting. There's a couple different sizes of things in there. Either we have baby rotifers and adult rotifers, or more likely, I've already gotten the tank contaminated. We'll have to find out later. Anyways, let's see. Let's see if we can just see somebody moving like a rotifer so we know it's not just passive drifting. Oh, come on, guys. Oh, focus. There we go. Like, they still look like they're floating and drifting. Now, if I look at these guys just based on the fact that they're so well distributed, I would guess these are alive, but I don't actually see them doing their little jiggy movements. I'm waiting to see one actually swimming, you know, back and forth, like we saw on day 3. Oh, there you go. There's one moving. Okay, so definitely alive in here. Not as healthy as they were on day 3. They're not as active. But they're alive, and they're swimming. So that's good. So that's our extension tank. You can see it needs more feed, but, you know, there's so much TW1800 solution accumulating in the bottom that I don't want to rot the tank, so I just keep stirring them. Now let's go to the main mama here. This is our original solution. Okay, good. And there is living stuff, or there is at least there is some suspended white powder in here, so we're assuming that there is living rotifers because of how well suspended they are. Now we just want to see them actually swimming. Let's see some actual swimming, guys. Moving towards the light, which okay, so we're just hoping to see a little bit more movement. Now the density is not as good as it was initially, though, I mean, admittedly, the solutions have been watered down 10 times now. We're not expecting a 10 times multiplier yet in population after 1 week. I think in the best case scenario, we would have tripled our population, or maybe quadrupled our population, but not 10 times it. So honestly, main original solution, which has had maybe 10% of the rotifers removed and moved into the secondary colony or culture. And so looking at, and then the main culture also has been watered down maybe 2 times, right? Like 50%. So I've removed 10% of the rotifers, estimated, and then I'd watered it down in half. So if we now look up close and compare this to the density when we first started, this is definitely less dense. Like, there's definitely less rotifers per millimeter than when we started, which is a bummer for sure. I think if I had really, really successful breeding, I'd be doubling every 3 days, which means at the end of the first week here, we should have a 4 times multiplier. Now, considering that I've watered it down 10 times, it should still look more distributed than it did before, or it should look less dense than it did before, but not this much less dense. So I have lost some rotifers, but the rotifers are still alive. I have successfully split the colony, but I wouldn't say I'm necessarily profitable here, right? All I've managed to do in my first week is maintain the population density. The population is not expanding. Not yet, anyways. I have a couple plans to try and improve the situation. My main plan is to just keep splitting it, right? We're just going to keep giving them more water and more space, and hopefully that, encourages them to continue to spread and not switch to making eggs. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to try and get them some better nutrition. So we're giving them dead algae cells, and the research shows that should be like a decent nutritional base. But no animal that I've ever heard of, except for carnivores, I guess, can live off of one food source exclusively. So, yeah, they need some more diversity in their diet. I think the ideal situation would be that it's actually an established saltwater tank with real bacteria and copepods and all kinds of different stuff in there. And then, they actually would have a more naturally diverse diet. But since this is a fresh culture water, it's essentially sterile, or functionally sterile, not actually sterile, but functionally. And so the only food they're getting is really the TW1800 solution and any bacteria that have managed to eat the rotting TW1800 solution, which is better than nothing, of course, but still not good enough. Now, I've heard that people feed yeast to rotifers, and it's considered a very low quality rotifer feed. So I don't want yeast to be my main feed source. However, yeast is going to have different nutritional stuff than the TW1800 will, just by the nature that it's, just a different thing. It's bacteria instead of algae for one thing, but then also, it was raised in a different context with different nutrition. So that should help. A fair warning to me, based on what the AI told me, is that I better not add much yeast. Essentially, I'm going to add so little yeast that I can't even tell I'm adding it. Well, I'll try and take a video when I do that, but essentially the goal is to add so little yeast that it's not noticeable and definitely not smelly. So yeah, here we are on day 7. The rotifers are alive, but less dense than they used to be. These two things got to go. My plan is to put this big guy in the fridge with a sealed lid on it and just hope for the best. So it's going to end up fermenting in there. Let's be real. And this guy, I'm just going to use as much as I can in the next day and a half and then toss it. And then for these guys, well, we'll just zoom in for a second, because why not? Starting with this one. So, there's something living in here. Not 100% sure it's rotifers, but there's something alive in here on the side of the tank. So that's good. Density's not particularly high, but it's present, right? It's not destitute, so that's good. And then in the main original guy that you guys are probably familiar with, we'll zoom in here. Let's see who's on the side. Yeah, really, I don't see anything in there. but we know there's some stuff. Oh yeah, so yeah, it really doesn't come through clearly, but you do see a few little white things moving around in there. So I have less rotifers than I started with by my estimates. I have the rotifers in 2 tanks. The TW1800 needs to get out of the house because the cohabitation committee said it stinks. So it's got to go. Things are not going as well as I hoped, but they're still pretty good, right? At this point, best case scenario, I would have 4 times as many rotifers as I started with and some active, healthy algae cultures. Instead, I have wasted half of my algae feed, and I probably have half the population of rotifers that I had on day 3, which was the highest density video footage. But there's still rotifers alive in there, and I don't think they're necessarily dying off. They're just not crushing it. So let's just see if they adapt to this. Also, this rotifer water is not yellow enough. It needs to be greener. It needs to be more yellow or more tan. So you can let me know if you agree or disagree. But in my opinion, this is lighter than the color of the water that they arrived in. So it's not bright enough. I really haven't been feeding them much. I've mostly just been stirring the algae that accumulates on the bottom, or not true algae, the diatom, the dead diatoms that are accumulated on the bottom, because they are eating those. And then the other problem I have is I'm pretty sure some brine shrimp eggs spilled in this one when I broke open my brine shrimp hatchery. Well, drip feeding into here. That's a silly mistake to make. I thought I cleaned it out good enough, but I did not. So hopefully all the brine shrimp eggs that are in there are infertile, because they would have run through the brine shrimp hatchery for quite a while without hatching. So they're probably sterile. So that's where we are. End of week 1. Good enough. Okay, it's time for me. First of all, there's not enough food dissolved in the water when I look at it, but anytime I stir up all the TW1800 in the bottom, it becomes yellow enough. So I'm hoping they're well fed enough, and I'm hoping this is not a rotting solution. I'm going to give it a smell. Yeah, to be honest with you, it smells pretty bad. But that's the TW1800. It always smells bad. Doesn't smell like it's fermenting, right? Well, it wouldn't, though, because it has a bubbler in it, right? So, anyways, that's what that is. Then if we stir this guy gets stirred more efficiently because it's a circle like this. And you can see, you know, there's enough dissolved stuff in there to keep them going. But it's getting clumpy, right? The TW1800 is getting clumpy. And yeah, it's just not clear if there's enough dissolved stuff in there for them to be eating well. I also want to water these guys down as well, especially on this side. These guys need a watering down. These guys might be okay, but I'm just going to give them lots more space to grow. I mean, obviously that's better. I would love to split this one again if I could. We'll see if I'm able to find enough time. But in the meantime, let's give them some supplemental nutrition in the form of yeast. So, like I said, I want to have the smallest amount possible. So the way I'm approaching this is like this. So, can you see that on the camera? You can't. Okay, but I basically got maybe a dozen flakes of yeast. Hardly anything. Probably not enough to make an impact at all, which is great. That's all I want to do. I'm aiming for like 1% yeast as feed. And I don't think what I just put in is enough to be 1%, by the way. But also, you know, there's no hurry here, right? We can always add more, but we can't take away. So let's add 1%. If it smells like bread at any point, you know I added too much. Okay, oh, this handful is more than a dozen pieces. Okay, flaked some off. Okay, that's like about a dozen. So a dozen flakes of yeast again. And we'll put that on. And that begins the beginning of our Rotifer Supplemental Nutrition Program. Okay, so we are on day 7. It's nighttime of day 7. Things look okay. You can see the coconut oil container. The second one looks actually pretty good. There's a nice looking colony in there. Okay, we'll just zoom in there for a second. Take a look. You can see, yeah, that's pretty active. That looks good, right? Whatever's going on in there. Hopefully it's not brine shrimp. But yeah, it looks good. And then this one less so. This one less so. So it's got something going on in it. I mean, they could have both afford to be split again, to be honest with you. But I'm just not in a position to do that right now. And I'm about to go away for 2 days. So the best I can do is just increase their volumes. So that's what I'm going to do. I've made a saltwater solution. It's about 1.021 specific gravity. And the salt water that they're in is probably 1.023. That's what I've been adding to it. It might be up to 1.024 now. So 1.021 to 1.023 is pretty significant. And I have to add slowly and deliberately and carefully. I might only be able to add 200 mils to this before I leave. But we'll see. I'll just add like 40 mils at a time to each one. And come back every, period that's longer than an hour. Okay, so let's add just a little bit of salt water right now. Just gotta loosen it till it comes out. Here it comes. So. Trying to get the drops as slow as I can without stopping it. So as good as I'm going to manage. And now let's just zoom in one time and take a look at how the cultures are doing. I'm going to leave for a day and a half and we'll come back and see how they are again. I'm going to turn the bubbler off. And let it settle. There is a light behind me, but they should go to this light. Okay, not very much. So what we're mostly seeing is just particulate, right? And it's just green stuff from the TW1800 diatom preserve. But yeah, there are a few things swimming towards the light now. So let's go over to the light, which is right here. Okay, so I can for sure see one moving. When I look with my eyes, it does look like there's a lot, but when I look through the camera with the zoom, it just looks like a bunch of dust in the tank. Okay, or maybe not. Maybe that's bumping. Look at it from here. There's a lot of cloudy stuff in there. Very efficiently suspended. Yeah, there's a lot in here. Hey. Okay. So our main tank is actually doing pretty well. Maybe you can see that there. Can you guys see that? But there's a lot of cloudiness in front of that light. And some of it's moving. I think that's the best density we've seen so far. How fabulous. How fabulous. Okay. Cool. Well, I am nervous they're getting over dense then at that point, but wow, isn't that great? That's a shock. I did not think that this tank was doing this well. Okay, so the side colony tank, the coconut jars is okay. It's got life in it, not a lot, but enough, considering it wasn't a big splash to start with. And this guy's bumping. This guy's actually bumping. And could afford to be filled to the top and split. No, I won't be able to split them tonight. But wowee. How awesome is that? Okay, hopefully we can keep them
keep him happy until we get back in a day and a half.